So a framework that I know and have come to love and is partly contributed to by a good friend of mine is NestJS. It was a technology that I got introduced to early on at my time at Collio, and immediately it felt like riding a bike. I was able to build a server-side app using TypeScript, importantly, TypeScript, as opposed to JavaScript. And I was able to do what I wanted to do without any friction, it felt like. Connecting to any kind of a database, SQL, NoSQL, really doing everything in Nest is a breeze for me. I know you are also a big fan of Nest and TypeScript. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what it is that you like about it, thoughts in general on Nest?
So I was also introduced to Nest at Collio. I think the first benefit of using Nest is the fact that it is TypeScript. TypeScript in general has been the biggest you know tool that has helped me across my entire developer experience. Working in JavaScript or PHP or other non-super type safe languages uh, was really difficult, and TypeScript was just working with that is just night and day. Nest.js as a framework was really awesome, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Like it helps you out with a lot of things, but it does stay out of your way. It has really good TypeScript support. It's about the only place I've ever seen generics used that I actually enjoyed. It does a lot for you, but it doesn't do so much that you have to struggle to work around the framework to accomplish like very common things. So I'm not really sure where the magic came from with that, but uh, yeah, it's just been a fantastic framework that encourages you to organize your code in modules and keep your code split up and do proper testing. They have some decent CLI tooling. Uh, yeah, it's been fantastic. I've used Nest.js on quite a few projects now, and every once in a while I'll peek back at something like Laravel, which is like a super batteries included framework, or because I do like Laravel, I'll look at something like Adonis, which is Laravel in Node.js with TypeScript.
Hmm.
And I've looked at Blitz and some other things, and I like the direction that many libraries are going. And I do wish that Nest had more official modules for common things, but I keep coming back to Nest. It feels very, very natural. And I'm not sure if it's just a matter of experience with the platform or if they really did nail that sweet spot between doing too much for you and doing just enough.
I definitely agree with basically all of that. I know so Camille is the face of that. He was the one that created it. And he's a guy from Poland, really talented from what I hear and what I have at least experienced. He definitely found that sweet spot that you're talking about. I know they take much inspiration from Angular, the way they do the dependency injection system and the way that they have opinions, much what they do better than Angular, I'd say, and for better or worse. I know some people like very opinionated frameworks. Angular is, I'd say, boilerplate heavy, and they have opinions on ways to do things, and obviously they have their own way to do templates, similar to how React does it. I would argue React is a lot more elegant, but that's this is me. But they do embrace TypeScript at its core right away, out of the box. It's what they supply, and to go off of what you said too, TypeScript has also been something that I've really, really enjoyed. I came out of school being really a pure JavaScript guy, and I had taken the courses in Java and C++, where you have to type everything. But to me, going out into the Wild West and being able to shoot your own foot off with something that's not typed and do an entire, maybe say it's a project in Express that just wasn't typed, or even Node, and we can get a little bit into that, how for me it's been beautiful to see the evolution of a Node server going to an Express server, having that framework to be used to using Nest. It was good to learn them all in that order, where you get to understand the lowest level, and then you can go up another level for the nice abstractions for writing a server, and then Nest comes along with the type safety and the somewhat opinionated way to do things, where you do have all your modules, really nice to have, especially with the dependency injection system, but it does scale incredibly well. And I even use it for really small projects too. So that is a testament to its ability to be useful for both. And it's been a pleasure to work with from my point of view. I don't know if you have anything more on that, but that's kind of what I've loved about it.
Yeah, the module system I think is the nicest part. So what I like about Nest is what I don't like about Angular. So when you're looking at Angular and you're comparing, like, let's say Angular, Vue, React, then we'll leave Svelte out of the conversation. Angular is, built for the enterprise work. It's built for people wanting to do a dependency injection so they can swap things out for testing or, managing the application as a whole. And it's a batteries included front end framework. Whereas React.js started as, oh, we're just a view layer. And then, people had to create so many variations of the common solutions until the community finally settled on, the most common packages. But it doesn't, come with anything like dependency injection or a lot of other features that, come with Angular. But because it's so simple at its core, it allows you to be a lot more flexible and not have to fight the framework as much when you want to do some really weird things. Whereas Vue.js is somewhere in between, where they have, an official router, an official, centralized state management, and a lot of other things. And the framework will do a lot more for you rather than expecting you to use patterns over other things. But it also doesn't, really have dependency injection. It's something you have to work around. When you're talking about DI and some of these other features that come with Angular, they're really better for larger applications. And even if you're working in a larger application, sometimes you just want to, get to the point of the front end. The front end is complicated enough. And with a very, simple, single view kind of, app that doesn't really do too much, you can feel like, oh, this isn't too bad. This isn't a lot of work. If you're, building on top of an SPA with, dozens or, hundreds of different views, and you have tons of modals and components and things that mix between local state and centralized state and on and on and on, it ends up being a lot. So I could see why some organizations would lean towards something like Angular, but you can still do those things in React. And I think React hits the sweet spot of being able to choose. You just have to be a little bit more experienced to be able to choose the right thing and actually make something that is clean code.
Yep, I hear that. And
When you work,
go ahead, yeah, please.
yeah. So when you're working on the backend though, so with Angular, I feel like forcing people into the enterprise pattern is bad. Whereas in NestJS, I feel like forcing people into the enterprise pattern is good, because when you're working with the backend, you're working with databases, other external APIs. You're building your own APIs. You might have like email, external authentication, maybe. Like there's a lot of stuff that can go into it that you're going to want to mock or fake, or you might want to reuse in other projects. You just want to be able to plug and play sometimes. And on the back end, even if you're working with, if let's say you're just starting with just Express, like I don't know if anybody actually starts with just Node, but let's say you're creating an Express project, you have to sort of follow the conventions of maybe you have a controllers folder and you put these things together, and you can make an API that works very simply, pretty fast. You can connect to a database, using some third-party ORM or ODM,
Yep.
and you can make something that works. And then all of a sudden you find that you've built a product, and now you need to be able to add, really good, integration testing or even testing with something like Cypress. And you're finding now you need to, depending on the environment, swap out not just environmental variables, but how the server handles a lot of things. And so I think when you get to this, especially when you get to testing and reusability, it becomes very hard to do a lot of that with just Express. And what you'll find that people do is often they'll sort of invent their own dependency injection system. And they end up having to do something like that if they want to have like a very reliably tested application. So maybe you wouldn't need something like Nest features for microservices or building a lot of like modules could be reused across projects. But having that dependency injection system on the backend, I think is critical. And at some point, your backend is probably going to need that. So the fact that they include that by default and it's all built around their DI system, I think is crucial. Whereas in Angular, I feel like it's not really necessary.